So the Joker 2 Folie has finally released in theaters, and is it as bad as people are saying? Well, I just got out of an empty showing for this film, so let's go ahead and discuss this movie. Let's talk about it. Let's go. Joker Folie is a musical drama and was directed by Todd Phillips and is the sequel to the highly successful 2019 Joker film, whereas in that film we watch this descent into madness that Joker has, and in this film we watch his life in Arkham, and we follow the court trial of Arthur Fleck for the rest of this film. Now, about half of the scenes in this movie are musical scenes, and of course when they first announced that Joker 2 was going to be a musical, a lot of us were doubtful about that decision, and it pretty much killed all of the hype going into this film. Now, with Joker 2019 being one of my favorite films of all time, so much so that I witnessed that film in theaters about 6 times. Yes, 6 times. That's not an exaggeration, and you can even see the poster, a glimpse of the Joker poster right there. That should tell you going into this film how much this sequel meant to me and how excited for it I truly was. So much so that even though it was announced as a musical, I still had high hopes going in to see this movie. So was it good? Was it bad? Well, let's start with my positives for Joker Folie. And for my first positive of this film, we're going to start with Joaquin Phoenix. Of course, Joaquin Phoenix is an amazing actor. He brings so much energy to every role he's in. He truly is the highlight of this film. Just as he was the highlight of the first film, his performance brings these films to life and bring his roles to life. He's easily the best part of this entire movie, of this entire franchise as a whole up to this point. I would say that Joaquin did what he could to save this movie with the script that he was given. Now, the second thing I appreciated about this film was the score of this movie, and it's pretty much a copy and paste from the first film. They straight up rip off the score and the soundtrack and every song that they used in the first movie. They just copy and paste it into this one, and I gotta say it does work. It lets you know, oh, we still are in the world that the first movie created, and it kind of ties the movies together, having that same soundtrack going into this movie. And I gotta say, for the first hour of this film, I was actually extremely happy about how this film was going up to about the halfway point of this movie, and the first half of this movie is exactly what I wanted to see. It's Arthur Fleck adjusting to his life in Arkham Asylum, in the madhouse, seeing his everyday, mundane daily activities of wake up, go to sleep, eat, etc., go out on the yard, and just showing you how terrible Arkham really is. So I actually appreciated that part of this film, along with the idea of seeing the court trial of the Joker on display, though I gotta say it was not executed as great as it should have been. So with that being said, that was all of my positives for Joker 2. Let's go ahead and jump into my negatives for Joker Folie. We're going to start with the script. The script for this movie is absolutely terrible. When you watch this film, you can see that the first movie definitely was intended to be a one-off. I mean, they came out and said it was a one-off before it even released, so we were never even supposed to have this sequel. And when you watch this film, you can feel that we weren't supposed to have this sequel. It feels like Todd Phillips did not want to make a sequel to the first movie, but because that movie made $1 billion at the box office, I'm sure Warner Bros. Applied that pressure to Todd Phillips to release this film and give us a sequel to the first Joker movie. Now, why for a second film you would choose for this to be a musical, I have no idea. That is a terrible idea, because half of this movie, it's very serious scenes. It's something you would have seen in the first movie, and the other half, it's laughable. It's ridiculous. For the first and second musicals that you get inside of this film, I felt like they actually implemented them to the best of their ability. It didn't feel like it got in the way of the movie too much, but by the time you get the third musical inside of this film, which happens midway through a very intense and serious scene, they just cut the tension right down the middle and drop a musical on you, and he breaks out into a singing number right when you wouldn't expect it. I mean, it's laughably bad, and then for the rest of the movie, they just get progressively worse from that point on. Not to mention the fact that Joaquin Phoenix, while he's an amazing actor, is he an amazing singer? Definitely not. He's tone deaf inside of this movie. It's terrible listening to Joaquin Phoenix sound like a dying animal inside every single musical sequence inside of this film. It sounds like they didn't even mix or master the audio for Joaquin Phoenix's singing voice to make it even slightly appealing to the audience. Quite honestly, it's atrocious. The only redeemable qualities about the musical scenes is Lady Gaga, and that's because she is a real musician, which, by the way, let's talk about Lady Gaga. Her singing is her only highlight for this entire film. Other than that, She was terrible inside of this movie. She did not need to be added into this film. She's horrible as Harley Quinn. They completely crushed the Harleen Quinzel character. They disrespected the origin story of this character. She feels like a pointless, tacked on addition to this film just to say, oh, Harley Quinn's inside of this movie. But is she really inside of this movie? Because after watching it, she's really just an obsessed fangirl. She's a clout chaser, and she wants to directly tie herself to Arthur Fleck just because he has the spotlight on him going into this murder trial. But outside of that, she doesn't have any real love or care or want any actual involvement with this character as a person whatsoever. I mean, she's not even his psychiatrist inside of the movie, guys. One of the best parts of Harley Quinn's origin story is that she's a psychiatrist and that she was Joker's psychiatrist assigned to him at Arkham Asylum. And during these sessions, Joker is so mentally advanced that he uses his psychopathy to break through one of the strongest minds in Arkham Asylum, that being the psychiatrist Harleen Quinzel, and then turning her into Harley Quinn through her infatuation with him. But they don't do that here. She's a random person who signed herself up to be in Arkham just to be in his presence, just to meet him. And from then on, it just gets worse and worse, guys, especially with how their love story ends up resolving inside of this film. Terrible, horrible, should have scrapped it, didn't need that at all inside of this movie, along with the musical parts. Now let's move on to my next negative about this film, and that is the fantasy scenes inside of Joker's head. Okay, something that we got inside of the first movie, kind of, with the Zazie Beetz character where he's imagining him having a girlfriend, but Arthur Fleck is still living his real life. He's just imagining and seeing another person there, almost like what a schizophrenic would experience. But in this movie, they chose to go a completely opposite direction with the fantastical elements, with the fantasy scenes, because a huge amount, at least 40% of the scenes in this film, take place inside of Arthur Fleck's head, and not in a my girlfriend's not really there kind of way like the first movie did it. No, it's just a complete fantasy scene. There's no pan in to show you, well, this is what Arthur Fleck is thinking at this time and imagining at this time, such as the scene of him imagining being on the Murray Franklin show at the start of the first film, right? No, in this film is completely different. They have him dressed up as Joker, Lady Gaga dressed up as Harley Quinn, and they just do a bunch of bits and musical scenes together in the fantasy world in his head. It's not even really happening inside of this movie. So what the hell are we even watching this for? I'm telling you, halfway through this film, you're thinking, how can they possibly ruin this? It's going so well so far. Even though the musical scenes are a little out of place, they're not that bad. To the other half of this film being completely terrible. And by the end of this film, you're wondering how you even got to this place to begin with. I mean, the final sequence in this movie, horrible. Who wrote this? Todd Phillips. We believed in you after you delivered the first film to us. How could you give the audience this movie, man? The ending of this film, terrible. One of the worst endings of all time. Is this really where you thought this character's story should conclude? And that's not to mention my biggest problem with this film, and that's that Arthur Fleck is not the Joker. That's right, we've been gaslit by the first movie to believe, this is the Joker, this is a Joker origin story. Yes, he's not scheming, he's not an evil mastermind, but he has time to build his way into that. Yes, he kind of fumbled his way through the first movie and had a big finale, and it was amazing to watch, but now in the second film, it's time to lock in because we get to see Mastermind Joker, we get to see him break out of Arkham, we get to see him plot and scheme and bring destruction to Gotham City. It's going to be amazing. Maybe even we get a cool payoff with this court scene that we're seeing inside the trailers. No, you don't get none of that at all those cool ideas that I just named that is an obvious direction for the sequel of the first movie, they do none of that at all. Arthur Fleck is not the Joker. In fact, he says repeatedly in this film towards the end that he's not the Joker. During the court trial, they make a big deal about his body count of 6 inside the first film, that being 6 people that he killed over the duration of the first movie. Guess how many people the Joker, Arthur Fleck, kills inside of this movie? Guess, it's a Joker film, right? It's Joker 2. How many people does he kill? 0. He kills 0 people for the 2 hours you're watching this film. You're watching a sequel to Joker 1 where he kills 6 people. He kills 0 people inside this film. Is this movie even rated R? I don't know. They have one scene that might have been rated R. Other than that, this could have been a PG-13 film, quite honestly, and that's pretty much my negatives for Joker 2 summed up. So let's go to my overall review for Joker, Folie, Deux. Look, guys, the first hour of this movie is actually pretty good. Joaquin Phoenix is pretty good as usual. Getting to see the lifestyle of Arkham and some of the court scenes was cool and was a great idea. But overall, the idea of this movie as a whole, it being a courtroom drama and a musical, is a terrible idea. And with this film existing, it's a horrible execution of a terrible idea, so you get exactly what you would expect here. The script is terrible. Anyone who's a real fan of the Batman or Joker mythos could have came up with a much better script off the fly very easily. After watching this film, I find it very hard to believe that Todd Phillips is an actual fan of the Batman or of the Joker as characters as a whole. This feels like a bad epilogue episode that released after the first film, a lazy tacked on addition to a masterclass that the first movie is. And quite honestly, I'm surprised that the first movie even exists in the form that it does. It had to be lightning in a bottle, because this can't be the same people that made that first film that made this second film. It's impossible. Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn is terrible, and if I had to rate this film, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. It gets the 4 out of 10. I was gonna go with a 5, but after expressing all the negatives about this film and thinking about how fantastic and amazing the first movie is, Joker 2019, the fact that Warner Bros. Even released this is so disrespectful to the fans. They should have just scrapped this movie, just like they did the Batgirl film that they scrapped completely, blew a whole budget on acting, completely edited the film, and then they just threw it away. Why didn't they do that with this movie? I would call this a cheap cash grab, but this film tries to be a little too artistic to be a cheap cash grab. It seems like a bunch of Hollywood Broadway nerds were allowed to make this movie because they're the only people in the world who loves musicals. We've been trying to tell Hollywood for the longest time, stop with the damn musicals, but they never do. So my most hyped sequel since 2019, since this film released, was a huge disappointment, a huge letdown. I can't believe I even had to make this video and say the things that I had to say, but I had to be honest, and quite honestly, I do want to talk some spoilers about this movie just so we can completely wash our hands of this film once this video is over. So let's go ahead and jump to the spoiler section for Joker 2. Folie. We're going to keep the spoiler section short and sweet, so let's just begin with Harvey Dent. Yes, Harvey Dent, the same Harvey Dent that turns into Two-Face. He does make an appearance, you know, a little cameo inside of this movie. He is the main DA, the main person in the courtroom on the offense going after Joker. And I gotta say, the way that they depicted Harvey Dent is so inaccurate. He's a scrawny looking DA, doesn't look like he can intimidate anyone. If you know something about Two-Face, you know he's supposed to look a little brolic. He's supposed to be a little physically imposing, at least for the average person. But they don't do that here. They don't even go for what you would expect, which is the Two-Face turn or reveal, which you never even get a hint at that. They blow up the courtroom inside of this movie. That's how this film concludes, guys. They blow the courtroom up. As soon as the trials came to an end, Joker manages to get up, walk his way out of the courtroom. He sees Harvey Dent laying there on the ground, damn near dead. I'm like, oh, they're gonna do the Two-Face. They don't. He walks out of the courthouse. He's walking on the street. He gets saved by some fans. He gets scared of his own fans, lets himself out of the car, takes off running down the street, gets caught by the police, ends up back in Arkham, walking down the hallway in Arkham, right? And this is the very end of the film. He just gets stabbed in his stomach by a random inmate, a nobody inside of Arkham. He says something goofy to him. He uses like one of Joker's lines back on him, and then he stabs him to death. The only death in the entire movie, it was not Joker committing the death. It was a random person killing Joker. You can't make this up how terrible this film is. It's kind of crazy. Another thing, the Harley Quinn character, she is a psychiatrist inside of this film. She just did not go to Arkham as a psychiatrist. She signed herself in as a patient. Why? I guess to kind of try to have them meet on even levels. Quite honestly, it would have just been better if she was just an actual crazy inmate than trying to fake being a prisoner. What the hell is that storyline? Get that out of here. End of the film where Joker says, I'm not Joker. Like I said, Arthur Fleck is not Joker, and he says it repeatedly over this entire movie. She gets upset and just walks away. Looks like she's gonna, you know what I'm saying, but she doesn't actually do that. They do have another scene together. She's not even surprised that he somehow made it out of the courthouse. She's just unimpressed and just walks away. Huh? What are we doing here? But one more thing that I wanted to touch on in the spoiler section. Joker, inside of this movie, he's on top of the world because he finally has the cameras back on him during the court scenes, right? He talks a little trash about the guards back at the prison, and he's kind of been cool with them the whole film. So in the Joker character at the courthouse, he talks bad about the guys at the prison, the guards. He then goes back there. They aren't that happy with him. He's like, oh, I'm in trouble. He's laughing it off. Ha, ha, ha. You know, he's being the Joker. They're beating the hell out of him, and he's laughing. You're like, okay, normal Joker. But then there's a very weird scene where they start stripping off his clothes, which fine, because you can't have like your fancy, courtroom suit on. You got to put on your prisoner clothes back on again. Okay, that's fine. But they don't put his prison clothes back on, guys. No, that's not what they do. What they do is they strip him damn near naked to his underwear, right? They're dragging him. They drag him to the prison showers. 3 guards, no inmates in there. They drag him to the prison showers. They're like, you're going to pay for, I guess, talking bad about us on TV at the courthouse. And then they force him to the ground, right? And he's laying on the ground. And then you see a guard kind of going down to his level. And then it kind of cuts right there. You don't get to see what happened. And then the next time you see Arthur Fleck, he's laying, like they throw him back in his prison cell. And he's not laughing anymore, guys. He's deadpan serious in the face. He's laying on his prison bed, lifeless, emotionless, can't move. Like he was just sexually assaulted. Guys, they R-worded the Joker inside of this movie. And then they moved right past it. It's not a plot point. It's not ever talked about again. You just kind of get that scene. It seems like this is what is about to happen. And then it cuts. And then you get the aftermath where it seems like, oh, that's definitely what happened. And then the movie just moves on. It's never addressed again. It was the most insane thing of all time. I was like, did they just R-word the Joker in Joker 2? Like, did they have Zack Snyder come to direct this film? Remember, Zack Snyder wanted to do that to his version of the Batman, except it never went through, because why would it? You're not going to R-word Batman. But they did it to Joker? What? Why would you do that to Joker, man? All right, guys, that's the spoiler section right there. That is the movie review concluded right there. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I had to completely rip apart one of my favorite franchises in recent history, that being the Joker 2019 world that Todd Phillips built. He built it into this masterpiece and then completely crumbled it and destroyed it in the second film. One of the most bizarre 2 pieces I've ever seen. We're not getting a 3rd film. We're not getting a trilogy because he brutally murdered the Joker randomly at the end. So that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the movie review. I'm curious to know your thoughts about Joker Folie down in the comment section down below. Have you seen this movie? If you have, let me know your thoughts. If you haven't seen this movie, let me know, are you going to check out this film even after the bad review I gave it? Let us know all that down in the comment section down below. If you don't know what we do here on Demigod ENT, we do film and TV reactions and reviews and other movie-based content. So if you're interested in any of this movie-based content, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. More content coming soon. I will be covering the Penguin series because that is our last shining hope inside Warner Bros. And inside the DC universe is the Batman.
The Batman.
So I'm hoping with the Batman 2 it's actually a proper sequel, and we don't get Joker 2 for the Batman 2. And yeah, the Penguin series is out. It's doing well so far. People like it. I've seen the first episode. I like it. I will be dropping a reaction review for the Penguin episode 1 and hopefully for the rest of the series after that video drops. So you can look out for that one next. More content coming soon, guys. More videos coming soon. Stay tuned. Peace.